Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Jesus Christ, couldn't get it out. Hope everyone is doing okay today. Let me check my volume. Shout out to Guy McPherson on that terrifying interview. I hope you guys caught it. It was an amazing interview. Terrifying to hear, if I'm being honest. To listen to that interview, if I'm blinking, I have eye drops in, my eyes are dry. And this light is doing weird things, so I can't see the room around me. That's why I'm looking weird. But nevertheless, Guy McPherson, thank you very much for coming on to the show. Amazing interview, terrifying interview, but an amazing interview nonetheless. Just because something is terrifying doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't talk about it. Even though, that said, I completely hope he's absolutely wrong in what he said in that interview. Let's fix this. There we are. That's better. Also, before I get into it, click link in the description box for Super Chat Alternative. If you want a Super Chat Alternative, the link is in the description box. Super Chat is not active, but this link is, and it would allow you to still donate. That is not me giving you a push. That is me just giving you a heads up. I'm sick of talking about it. I have a month before they activate it again, so I'm annoyed by it. Nevertheless, it's there as an alternative. Let's get into the story. Jeremy Corbyn is still under attack. Still under attack. Now, this is pretty amazing. There's a pretty odious way in which they're attacking Jeremy Corbyn. Now, I've said on this channel, perched in this soapbox, or on this soapbox, humbly, or maybe not so, depending upon how you look at what I'm saying, but I put forward early on, months ago, months and months ago, that Corbyn is being attacked. And that Corbyn was being attacked from the standpoint of the Blairites in the party and the Jewish lobby in Britain and to some degree in Israel. Now, why would I say that? Why would I bring that up? Why would I make that assertion that that was taking place? You had a spy from Israel that was ejected from the UK who was meddling in UK politics. Margaret Hodge came forward saying that she was going to be a mallet that was going to be used to hit Jeremy Corbyn. They was doing this in the secret, in the private, and it came up in the news that this was going to be something that was going to take place. Good reporting. You had Margaret Hodge screaming like a goddamn lunatic, the same person who was going to be in the shadows, who evades taxes, her company, magnificently rich and wealthy, doesn't necessarily want to pay a fair share in taxes. That person that was going to be a mallet for Jeremy Corbyn that was exposed in the media, who months later, ending up just so happened screaming that Jeremy Corbyn was a fucking anti-Semite, a mallet, that person had nothing to show for it. Like, she's screaming he's a fucking anti-Semite with nothing to show for it, the leader of her party. Now, is it a coincidence that the person who's screaming that Jeremy Corbyn is a fucking anti-Semite, it's the same person who they had decided was going to be a mallet to try to hit and take down Jeremy Corbyn? I don't think that's a coincidence. You find these other people in the shadows, the 12 rogues, turncoats, the people who are conspiring at a farm, talking about let's let Jeremy Corbyn take the leadership position and then let's take the rug from under him by essentially forming a new party. These people have been planning in the shadows, terrified that Jeremy Corbyn would take power. Now, is it just a coincidence that the Jewish lobby, who, again, had somebody evicted from the country for meddling in the UK politics, somebody who meddling in politics who did not like Jeremy Corbyn and was actively working against it. And in this particular scenario with Margaret Hodge, same thing, Blairites, you find out that the people, when he was running his electoral campaign, the Blairites were literally putting false signals and doing a different campaign. Meaning, so the campaign that Jeremy Corbyn thought that if you looked at his Twitter account would show one thing, but really the wider campaign that was going out to the other people was a different campaign than what Jeremy Corbyn wanted to run. They've been undermining him in the entirety of this process. And why are they doing this? Well, Theresa May government is falling apart. Zombie Theresa May falling apart. And so with that government falling apart, disintegrating before our very eyes, they're terrified that this man who said no chance of ever getting even to the leadership position of Labour had no chance of taking power, and they know at this very moment that man could most likely take power. if an election was held today, Jeremy Corbyn would be in a leadership position. The Brexit negotiation that's putting pressure on this government, they realize that at this moment, it is irreconcilable. The only way that you're going to be able to deal with Brexit is another referendum or an election. And again, if that election is held, the man who was supposedly never supposed to come close to the prime ministership, to number 10, is coming home to number 10. So you have these different groups freaked out. And in these different groups freaked out, they decided to work together. So you have the Jewish lobby, you have the Blairites, one group being hysterical, screaming that Jeremy Corbyn is a fucking anti-Semite with nothing to show for it in the least, but screaming nonetheless, is essentially emboldened to some degree by the Blairites like Tom Watson, who stabs Corbyn in the back and is giving some legs to this nonsense. They are trying to get him to review a standard that would allow them to say that critique of Israel is anti-Semitic, is being anti-Semitic. This is, of course, nonsense. There is no standard per se. The standard doesn't exist. They're making this up out of whole cloth. And by definition, just by saying support of Palestine is not the same thing as going after Israel. They've hyperbolically tried to make this argument that Jeremy Corbyn is an existential threat to Jews in the UK. This is utter nonsense. All of this boils down to Jeremy Corbyn criticizes Israel. Jeremy Corbyn is supportive of Palestine. That's the beginning and end of it. Blairites, who are terrified that Corbyn is going to take power, aid in this because they want to find a way to smear Corbyn. That's what all of this is. All of this is politics. Now, whether or not the people who are in the populace itself fully understand that this is politics, I guarantee you that the people who are in the political class know this is nonsense. And yet, this goes on nonetheless. So when I look at my Twitter thing today, what do I see? I see Aaron Mattei talking about the same thing that I've been talking about for the past few months, that this is somewhat of an attack, this is an assault, this is two sections of the political class, Israeli lobby, who again has had somebody ejected for being involved in UK politics, and the Blairites, who've been essentially ejected from the leadership positions, join forces to attack Corbyn. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Israel running campaign against Jeremy Corbyn. God damn it, I love it when I'm right. God damn it, I love it when I'm right. Yeah, of course. Because countries meddle and intermingle in other countries' politics. I'm not shocked by this. From the standpoint of Israel, Jeremy Corbyn supports Palestinian rights. From Israel's standpoint, and to some degree, the moment that somebody supports Palestinian rights and you say, wait a minute, you're mistreating them and you're essentially wiping them off the face of the earth. You're stealing all of their land, you're putting them into smaller and smaller areas. Not to mention, you're committing massacres, assaults, bombings on people who are living in an open-air ghetto. That's problematic. The moment that you bring that up, the Israeli government dislikes that. It immensely dislikes that. It is something that's atypical in the United States, and to some degree atypical from the standpoint of having somebody who's going to be in power take that particular strident cadence. To be very clear, though, this is not the same thing as being anti-Semitic. Understand what I mean? Criticism of Israel is not the same thing as being anti-Semitic. They're not doing that because they're Jews. They're doing that because they're trying to take the land. It's a difference in those things. It has nothing to do with their either religious or, racial affiliation. A criticism of a country is not the same thing as a criticism of people just for being who they are. This is very important to understand. There's often a conflation that's made between those things. And the Israeli government makes that conflation on purpose. They want this idea that if you criticize Israel, you're somehow criticizing, you're anti-Semitic. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. If I criticize what's taking place in, Jesus Christ, I need a country. It's like when you do that for a random country. Saudi Arabia. I'm not being Islamophobic. I think Saudi Arabia is a backwards theocratic country. That doesn't make me Islamophobic. And nobody thinks that, by the way. Israel is the only country when you criticize, they try to say is anti-Semitic. But the government itself tries to make that conflation. And the United States tries to make that conflation. It's nonsense. I can criticize any country I want. It has nothing to do with their racial affiliations. It has everything to do with what the country is doing. If I'm talking about an African dictator, it has nothing to do with him being black. It has everything to do with him being a dictator. Those are different. The same rules apply in that case for Israel. All of this is nonsense. Let's take a look at this. Just for a summary. There's an Israeli application called ACTIL. ACTIL has been followed because it's known and be in association with the strategic affairs of the Israeli government. This application has put out kind of the word to essentially attack and smear Jeremy Corbyn in this odious, reverse racist way of calling him anti-Semitic, even though there's nothing to attach him with for anti-Semitism. It is a nasty way. It's like somebody says, dude, I don't like what you said there on that channel. You're being racist. Do you know how nonsense that is? When Hillary Clinton ran her campaign and every time somebody criticized her, oh, it's because she's a woman. It's because she's a woman. All of these people are just sexist and racist. That's what it is. You didn't vote for me because you're sexist and racist. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Yes, some of the people are sexist and racist. And yes, some of the people who may criticize Israel may be anti-Semitic. Not all of them. And in the case with Corbyn, not so much. Not so much. All of this is a propaganda campaign to smear Jeremy Corbyn and to weaken his grasp of leadership. They full well understand that Jeremy Corbyn can potentially take power when that government falls apart. Not if. When that government falls apart. They're doing everything they can. They're running scared. Israel is joining hands with the Blairites. And in doing so, trying to take what the very least hit him in the knees. An app operated in part by an Israeli government propaganda campaign issued a mission for social media users to make comments against Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn, accusing him of anti-Semitism. This is the latest evidence of the Israeli campaign of psychological warfare against the UK's main opposition party. The ACTIL app on Sunday falsely accused Corbyn of comparing Israel to Nazi Germany in 2010 meeting, which resurfaced last week by the Times. The mission was documented in this tweet by Michael Buckert, a Canadian researcher who has been monitoring the app since last year. Israel's official propaganda app is promoting comments against Jeremy Corbyn on HuffPost UK. Strangely, these comments claim there is not a history of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, blaming anti-Semitism solely on Jeremy Corbyn anti-Israel's statements. Think about that. Hey, we're not saying there's anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. We're saying Jeremy Corbyn himself is anti-Semitic. That's amazing. The reality is very different from the app's claims. As my colleague Adri Newolf explains, Corbyn hosted a meeting titled Never Again for Anyone with Hajo Meyer, survivor of Auschwitz concentration camp and an anti-Zionist who spoke out strongly for Palestinian rights. Meyer passed away in 2014. Look, you can understand why somebody would speak out strongly about that from Auschwitz, right? You're Jewish. You lived through the concentration camps. And you, let's say, being an honest person, nothing to do with your religious affiliation or racial identity, being an honest person, you see what's taking place. Oh my God, we're holding these people in an open-air ghetto. No, this is not Nazi Germany. But yes, the people who were abused have turned around and become the abusers. I don't like this. I don't want to replicate the things that I saw in that other country. I don't blame him in the least. He's being honest. Let's keep going. That's who Corbyn had. The ACTIL app asks users to comment on Facebook in response to the Huffington Post UK story about Corbyn's alleged anti-Israel remarks, which claims are often a way to hide anti-Semitism. And there it is. The reason why they want him to take the standard is because they want that thing of, just because somebody is making a comment against Israel, that could be veiled anti-Semitism, which implies you can't critique Israel. It's nonsense. No one wants to be critiqued. Everyone wants to find reasons why you can't necessarily critique them. I had a let me go through this first. The mission directs users to click like on a comment by a Facebook user named Nancy Sada and write their own comments echoing the criticisms of Labor. As Electronic Intifada reported earlier this year, the ACTIL App is a product of Israel's Strategic Affairs Ministry. The ministry directs Israel's covert efforts to sabotage the Palestine solidarity movement around the world. Its top civil servant is former Army intelligence officer, and the minister is staffed by veterans of various spy agencies whose names are classified. The ACTIL mission is another piece of evidence of the Israeli campaign of psychological warfare against Labor. They have a propaganda arm. They're meddling in the affairs of the UK government. From the United States standpoint, this is an attack on democracy itself. The Israeli government, based on the standards that the United States has set, is attacking democracy itself. It is trying to destroy the Labour Party, attacking democracy. I'm using the language that we're using here. Here's another piece. I'm not going to keep this one much longer. It's part of a long-running influence operation by Israel and other lobby groups to smear Corbyn, a veteran Palestinian solidarity activist, and to label the party he leads institutionally anti-Semitic. The operation also aims to push Labor, where there is strong support for Palestinian rights among the grassroots, into a more pro-Israel direction. Corbyn has resisted this. To his credit, he's resisted this. A covert element of the effort revealed last year by the undercover Al Jazeera documentary The Lobby involved attempts by Israeli embassy to set up a grassroots pro-Israel organization for labor youth. Again, directly influencing UK politics. Israel directly influencing UK politics. No Facebook and Twitter ad shit. They are directly influencing UK politics. The Jewish labor movement, an anti-Palestinian group deeply linked to the Israeli government, has been the forefront of this effort. The group is run by Ella Rose, a former Israeli embassy officer. I'm going to leave this here because I think it makes the point, and you can read the rest of the article for yourself. I struggle with how much of an article to give because there's some stuff in the article. It's like, God, I don't want to give this up. And if you just give a blurb of it, it doesn't get across the totality of the article. They're going after Corbyn. You know what this reminds me of? I was playing chess one time in the library. And as I played chess in the library, there was a white guy beside me. There was an African American that was playing chess with him. I forget who else playing chess with. But they were arguing. They were going back and forth. They were having a conversation. They weren't a full argument. It was just the conversation. It was mild, tame conversation. But they were disagreeing. And the white guy says, I don't want to have this conversation. I want to keep having this back and forth. I don't want to argue with you. And the other cat was like, why is it every time that a black man has a conversation, it's arguing? And I'm like, wow, where the fuck did that come from? Now, understands where that comes from in two places. One, if people are a little sensitive based on the history that those people lived in, well, their sensitivity is a natural response to the stimuli that they've encountered. Two, he was losing the argument, and as a person was looking for something to shield the fact that he was losing the argument. Yes, racism exists. Yes, there's some people that may do that. No, that's not what was taking place there. And in this case, he wanted to find something to shield himself from losing the argument, and he went to race in this case. That doesn't take place in all cases. In this case, he was full of shit. I know the guy. This is the same thing. That's literally what Israel is doing. We're killing, we're massacring, we're essentially eradicating the population so we ourselves can essentially steal all of this land for ourselves. We don't want criticism about it, and we need to run operations to try to prevent people who could get in positions of authority who could criticize us for it. And as such, our government is going to run operations against those people in various nations. And that's what they've done. That's what they're doing in the UK as they go after Corbyn. So, I'm not going to keep this one long because I need to leave Israel Gate. I know, right? Going after Corbyn is their job, whatever it takes to keep him from winning. It's not going to matter. Corbyn is going to win. Corbyn is going to win this. I don't necessarily think the people in the UK are this dumbfounded by this. They've spent 2 years screaming at the height of their lungs about Russia. 1% of the population in this country cares. What does it look like there? They're doing the same thing with Corbyn from the standpoint of this hysteria about anti-Semitism without a shred of anything to show. I don't think it has legs. I could be wrong. I don't think it has legs. But we'll see. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. Thanks everyone.